Between 1987 and 1990, 3 action films were immediately cemented into history, apart from the one filmmaker who created them. So, who was the forgotten mastermind who changed action cinema forever?
Game of chess against our old adversary, the American Navy.
Leads, we can kill it. Already said to you before.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. You have expended. Get to the chopper!
To the coast, we get together, have a few laughs.
Within 4 years, John McTiernan had gone from a relative unknown to having created Predator, Die Hard, and The Hunt for the Red October. In this time frame, he had changed action cinema forever with his revolutionary techniques and focus on performance. But the sad thing is, no one remembers his name. So who was John McTiernan? John began his career at Juilliard and the American Film Institute. He spent his days directing adverts, writing scripts, and watching European movies.
I wrote 2 or 3 screenplays, and the notion was that, I'll keep going until I get a screenplay that someone wants to make badly enough that they'll even let an idiot like me direct it. And ultimately, that's exactly what happened.
If you've never been frightened by anything, you will be frightened by nomads.
One of the first screenplays I wrote was called Nomad.
An ambitious horror thriller starring an unknown Pierce Brosnan about evil spirits haunting an anthropologist. And like many debuts, it wasn't received very well, with Roger Ebert describing the film as confusing and a slog to get through. However, one thing that was noted by critics was the way that it was shot. It wasn't done in the American way. See, John's biggest inspirations weren't action directors of the past, such as John Frankenheimer or Sam Peckinpah, but European New Wave directors like Francis Truffaut or Bertolucci, or even visionaries like Stanley Kubrick. Their focus was visceral, visual storytelling and great performances, and therefore, so was his.
What you learn from Nomads?
One of the main things I learned that a movie had to be better.
How?
That you have to work harder, you have to put more content in it.
And although most critics hated the film, one man read between the lines and saw John's real talent, suspense, stating, if he could create that kind of atmosphere with so little money, he must be very talented.
20th Century Fox presents Arnold Schwarzenegger. Predator. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.
Arnold and the producers wanted Predator to be different to other 80s action films. They needed suspense. From the moments the characters arrived in the jungle, they wanted the viewer to feel scared, even without the Predator around. So, from his ability to create suspense in Nomads, McTiernan was given the reins of Predator, a movie about mercenaries being hunted down in the jungle, one by one. From the get-go, John knew that paranoia and suspense had to take priority over the action.
And it took you 25 minutes to show us a first action scene. And I watched the remake they made. It took them 30 seconds.
If you put the action in the first 5 minutes, well, what are you going to do 25 minutes in?
See, for an action filmmaker, John was subversive. He didn't like glorifying violence purely for spectacle. John wanted to create suspense and focus on the performances and emotional stakes, so that when the action did come around, it hit hard. He teases the audience with sweeping shots of negative space, long shots of the group's increasing anxiety, and onlooking POVs, all of which make the punches hit that much harder when the predator does eventually reveal itself. This was what set John apart from his peers.
So I knew what European filmmakers had been doing for the previous 50 years. And so I just took the techniques of Fellini and Bertolucci and stuff they've been doing for 20 years in Europe, and just applied it to silly movies like this.
And the studio hated this idea.
I was getting a lot of flack from the studio, well, from one particular executive, saying, well, you have to have more shots of guns firing. And I finally said to the studio, look, okay, you want more pictures of guns? I will give you pictures of guns. I will give you so much gunfire that you just can have the orgasm you're itching for. And then we can stop this nonsense, all right?
Stick around.
Yet, despite all these fancy European techniques, John still knew what Predator was, a popcorn movie.
I wanted to do an old-fashioned popcorn movie. And that's what this is.
Having spent months battling the elements in the jungle, having the studio breathe down his neck, and even some reshoots to change the appearance of the Predator, it was released. And the result? Box office gold.
It is exactly what it is. It is a pure summer action picture.
The reaction was huge. I mean, The Predator was an instant success. It turned out to be a wonderful movie.
McTiernan's name was out there. He was off to the races. His European technique, mixed with modern American action, was groundbreaking.
So we were very, very excited to see, okay, well, can this guy follow this up?
And his next project would see him change the landscape of action forever.
He's an easy guy to like.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
And a hard man to kill. Bruce Willis. Die Hard.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
In 1960, Jean-Luc Godard released Breathless, a film about a petty thief in Paris who was on the run after stealing a car. This film changed cinema forever, with its rule-breaking in cinematic technique and storytelling. And well, Die Hard did the exact same thing.
If you already know, if you live in a world where Die Hard has just already existed, that means nothing to you. You already know it's a terrific movie. What was so great about Die Hard is you didn't know that walking into it. It just seemed like a Bruce Willis action film.
Die Hard caused a ripple effect across the action genre of great magnitude. No one had seen a major motion picture blockbuster told in this way before. And it was all because of two seemingly small decisions that McTiernan had to make.
I turned the script down like 3 times because it was about terrorists. It was serious. Nobody has any fun about terror. Terrorism is not fun. Sort of the first thing I said is, can we make them robbers? Everybody loves robbers.
What kind of terrorists are you? Who said we were terrorists?
From this, John had quickly turned Hans Gruber and his gang from boring terrorist thugs to smart, charismatic robbers, drastically changing the tone of the film. Action cinema villains had never been so much fun before, and who would take them down? Richard Gere?
It was written for Richard Gere. You know, the hero was a suave, cool guy. And we had Bruce.
McClane was originally more of a classic cool action hero on the page, but unfortunately, for John, he could only get Bruce Willis, a then TV actor with a streak of box office bombs, and therefore he had to adapt. He scrapped the idea of John McClane as the smooth New York cop, and instead decided to use an old trick he picked up when it came to handling actors.
If you can get actors who can bring something to the table, and then turn them loose. John McClane's character was built out of Bruce. We said, okay, who's this guy? Lower middle class kid from New Jersey with a lot of spunk. Okay, well, we better try to build John McClane out of that. The camera always sees who's the real person. So successful characterizations, if you will, or successful casting is often figuring out who the person is and moving a part forward.
From this, John would compress Die Hard's time frame from 3 nights to 1, drawing parallels from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
You want a movie that's built like this.
Well, you mean the fool became the kings and the kings became the fool?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the morning, the kings becomes asses and the asses become kings. And all the levels of society change, interchange.
With this one small decision, John had changed the action genre forever, switching the muscle-bound Adonises for the vulnerable working-class hero. For the first time, the action lead was susceptible to pain and stress. The film was no longer about how fast McClane could shoot his gun, but how fast he could solve problems.
Like you did with Takagi. Oops. No bullets. You think I'm fucking stupid, Hans?
With Die Hard, John kept the camera moving, using it to play with the audience. And although this doesn't look particularly groundbreaking, no one in modern American action at the time was doing it.
You know, you'd never see that move right there in an American movie. A simple, expressive, or subjective move like that. It was only in European films at that point. What it increasingly was doing is connecting repeated shots with a camera move instead of the traditional way it's done. Okay, see, every one of these is a separate shot, but they're tied together with a pan.
With Die Hard, McTiernan continued his winning streak. His ingenuity and style was breaking every rule in the book, and again, people loved it.
And I also like the fact that it is held in the skyscraper, so there is some claustrophobia involving this seeming terrorist attack.
But what happens if a movie is majorly successful in Hollywood? They rinse, wash, and repeat it.
Certainly after I made Die Hard, I got 10,000 versions of people wanting to do the same thing. And people are always trying to turn things into a formula. Okay, we'll do Die Hard on a boat. We'll do Die Hard on... Blah, blah, blah. Some guy even sent me a script. He's really a brilliant young screenwriter. He sent me a script that was Die Hard in a building with a straight face. He had no... It was like, my God.
I think you said no to Mission Impossible, to Batman Forever, to Speed, to Terminator 3.
Yeah, all of those.
Why?
And loads of others. Well, I just didn't want to make the same movie again.
So what did John do next? Instead of saying yes to millions of dollars and an easy ride, he got out of his comfort zone and decided to make a thriller encased in steel, 1,200 feet below sea level, where the action was in the dialogue.
Battle stations. Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, James Earl Jones, Scott Glenn, Sam Neill. The hunt for Red October.
I never saw Fellini do that. You know, I never saw men who were good at it. I never saw Kubrick do that. I never saw him go make the same movie again.
This is an old-fashioned adventure story. It's a sea story. It's about a group of men attempting an enormous feat, which is to take an entire ballistic missile submarine across the Atlantic Ocean against the wishes of their government and their entire navy and turn it over to the United States. It's a giant stunt.
With Hunt for the Red October, John was out to prove he wasn't just the action guy. Instead of explosions, one-liners and firepower, he had to now master slow-building tension and intellectual drama. It was a hard task, as the script was essentially just smart people talking in rooms.
It would have been impossible to put all the information in the book in the screenplay.
And I just had an intuition about what Clancy had done.
Therefore, he had to be efficient in building not only suspense, but trust in the audience. This was where John's focus on great performances and visual storytelling was essential.
Well, sir, I was just thinking that perhaps there's another possibility we might consider. Ramius might be trying to defect.
Do you mean to suggest that this man has come... Mr. Ryan.
He knew that the role of Jack Ryan had to create a sense of unease. He's a fish out of water, and therefore, so should the actor. They needed someone unknown to the audience, yet someone who could still come off as intelligent and trustful.
So we flew him out, we read him, McTiernan loved him, and we decided we'd take a chance on the young Alec Baldwin.
The other thing that I think is really distinctive about the film is the performance by Alec Baldwin. He is not a superhero. He doesn't play it that way. He plays it as a guy who's simply very, very smart and careful and methodical. He isn't boring while doing that. And a lot of people don't know who he is. Yes, in other words, if it were a familiar face, for example, if you put Connery in that role, you'd say, well, there's not going to be any problem here, because he'll obviously solve what needs to be solved.
The general was right. I am not field personnel. I am only an analyst.
You're perfect. I can't ask any of these characters to go.
For the characters Ryan would meet along the way, John knew they had to do the complete opposite. They had to immediately command respect when on screen.
What this movie just had so many great movie actors, people that could really, squeeze every moment out of it in front of a camera.
He hired actors who had previously served in the military to bring to life these high-ranking men. Scott Glenn as the captain of the USS Dallas, James Earl Jones as the CIA's Director of Intelligence, and Sean Connery as the infamous Ramius, captain of the Red October. Each of these men immediately command respect once on screen, making the military jargon they spout believable, bringing an air of calmness to the most tense scenes.
I know this book.
Torpedo impact.
Your conclusions were all wrong, Ryan.
10 seconds.
Halsey acted stupidly.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
McTiernan's visuals in the film are some of his best. Confined by the walls of a sub, he and cinematographer Jan de Bont had to get creative.
It is claustrophobic in an actual submarine, but there's only so much that you can do with a camera.
This is where I think McTiernan's visual storytelling is at its best. He pulls out all his old Bertolucci and Kubrick tricks when it came to creating tension and claustrophobia in scenes. He does this by using wide lenses in small spaces, getting up and close to the actors' faces, filling the frame with as many people as he could, and racking focus instead of cutting. This visual storytelling also makes it incredibly easy to follow, as he trusts the audience can work things out for themselves.
What you do in a lot of your films, to put the audience in a proactive situation, but be able to watch that, and that, and that.
They get to see what no one in the story, because then you play with those things, right? They get to know what no one in the story knows. This person in the story knows this much.
Yeah.
This person in the story knows this much, but the audience knows both of them.
Yeah.
And they know that means that there will be a crisis, that something will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the quieter scenes, John's subtleties work in tandem with the performances, exacerbating the impact to create a great picture. And once again, the studio hated it.
There was this very ambitious young studio executive who wanted to turn Red October into Top Gun. And while I was away, he went into the editing room and ordered the editor to start recutting it into Top Gun.
Despite this though, Red October was released to John's final cut and became an immediate success.
When I saw Hunt for Red October, I was like, okay, yeah, boom. There's a new guy in town. It's absolutely, it's for sure. The new epic filmmaker of the generation is going to be John McTiernan. John McTiernan, he's a combination of Tony Scott and Otto Preminger.
Yeah.
All right.
Said.
It's got the look and the sizzle and the hipness of Tony Scott imagery and lighting and everything, but it doesn't have the attention disorder editing style.
Yeah. He's thinking classically.
In this motion picture, you have a director who has gained an expertise in action adventure film, considering Die Hard and Predator, movies like that, which I watched as if I was a 12-year-old kid, totally captured by it, captivated by it. And you will get that kind of expertise exercise on this film, from John.
John McTiernan went on one of the best runs in cinema history between 1987 and 1990. Changing action cinema forever. He trailblazed the action genre within this small time, with a copycat for each of his films. His influence is so widespread due to his constant devotion to progression. After this run of movies, McTiernan would finally lose the battle against the studios, leading to his first bomb, Medicine Man. From that point on, studio interference would slow him down, and his career would suffer. There are some diamonds in the rough though, such as Die Hard with a Vengeance, Last Action Hero, and the Thomas Crown Affair. Yet, this wouldn't be enough, and later, McTiernan would be sent to prison for wiretapping a studio executive for his penultimate film, Rollerball. This really took away from McTiernan's legacy, and led to him disappearing from the Hollywood scene, ruling never to come back again, which is such a shame, as I think he's one of the most influential and best visual storytellers to ever come out of Hollywood, and should be spoken in the same conversations as Tony Scott, Paul Verhoeven, and Michael Mann. Anyway, this is what I do between jobs. Consider subscribing, it really helps me out, and thank you very much for watching.
But the important part of it was realizing that we're in an activity that is not ancient. We're the people creating it now. We're still in the beginning of it. And because we are in such a young activity, it's in effect we have the right to define things ourselves, and we should take the right. We should say, this is the way it should work. And I don't care what that guy did. I know what that guy did, but I'm not afraid. I don't have to follow him. I just need to understand him. I found in the way Jan conducted that whole conversation, I found that one message of, for the time you're working, it's your fucking medium. Do it. Have the courage to do it. And define it as you will.